Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now August 28th of 2023, and given that there's a lot of things going on right now behind the scenes between Bob Iger and the Disney Board of Directors on figuring out exactly what in the world to do with Snow White 2024 ahead of its D23 debut, and we're talking about the trailer, which by the way is still set for a release in or around September 9th to the 10th, right around that D23 event takes place. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into the subject, shall we? Now, we know that Rachel Zegler's comments have really, contributed to a lot of damage to this film, but it wasn't just that. It was the leaked photographs of the seven dwarfs as well as Snow White in the middle of nowhere, in a field as we all witnessed, and it just really scared a lot of people away. It just showed us how creepy Disney has become with this live-action remake, if you even want to call it a remake, right? I would say it's nothing more than a reimagining. This movie should not even be titled Snow White. It should be called something else entirely new. But anyways, heading into exactly what's going on here with Disney and how it really shows its true colors toward its customers. Now, we know that Bob Iger is one of the worst CEOs ever, if not of all time. In fact, I believe he's the worst of all. But what's intriguing about Snow White 2024 is the fact that there were a lot of problems that happened with this movie from March of 2022 until literally today. Alright, so we know that they began shooting the film back in March, but let's get into the details here. Now, with Snow White 24 going through many adjustments behind the scenes by Disney, one major development has to do with Disney's mishandling of the film. As it turns out, before the summer of 2022, Disney actually had shot plenty of scenes that honored the source material. This was right around March of 2022 when they began filming. The source material that they did in fact honor at the time was an accurate sequence of the apple scene, a love story between the prince and Snow White, as well as plans to hire actual dwarfs as the seven dwarfs. The original title for Snow White was indeed going to be titled Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. This was all changed rapidly toward April of last year, when they put all the extra footage that they shot that honor the 37 original on the cutting room floor. They erased the subtitle that showcasing the seven dwarfs from the film after hiring different genders and ethnicities with varying heights to play the magical creatures instead. This is when far less accurate scenes, such as the apple scene, were filmed, as well as deleting the concept of the traditional love story. Even Jonathan was originally called Prince Jonathan. This was later dropped. However, this too was changed by just calling him John or Jonathan in this movie. Now guys, let me stop here quick for 1 second. Now, the thing that I have a problem with this is the fact that Disney was sort of honoring the source material, and may have not been honoring every single element of the 37 original, but it was at least gonna have some aspects in there that accurately represented the original movie from 37. And this was all shot in March of 2022. Again, this is like right in the beginning when they started filming. The problem that arose out of this is that Disney had a change of heart on things. They wanted to make a swift adjustment with this movie and to change it entirely about a quarter of the way through filming. Alright, and a lot of it had to do with Peter Dinklage, a lot of it had to do with Bob Iger and Bob Chapek. We'll talk more about that later. But what's interesting about this is the fact that we have a lot of things going on with director Mark Webb. He is the guy that created The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, 500 Days of Summer. Those are really his three, main projects that he's known for, right? So, the thing about Snow White is that we were supposed to have the official title being called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Disney X'd that out. They canceled that idea. They threw out the original source material that honored the original film. And let's not forget, they ditched the idea of a prince being in this movie or being referred to as a prince, and they dropped that as well. And that's just the beginning. Let's get into the further details here. Now, Moving forward to around April of 2022, this is where the whole Peter Dinklage situation started to really settle in and started to really erupt for Disney. And so this is where things began to change even further. Let's discuss. However, this too was all changed and adjusted. There were even plans to create CGI dwarfs at one point, but Disney felt that would be unrealistic for a live-action film, and they even did test shots with that in studio. As it turns out, Peter Dinklage did have a major impact on Disney's way of thinking about involving actual dwarfs in the story, and he did play a role in Disney changing its mind. However, that was only the final push, as Disney already had plans to begin with by deleting the original concept of the dwarfs. The magical creatures in this film reportedly have a unique power each, much like the 7 dwarfs from the Happily Ever After 1989 movie that takes place after the events of Snow White 37. One of the magical creatures is said to grow fruits and vegetables in a natural environment. Disney does want to reshoot some scenes, but the strikes are getting in the way of making that even possible. So that's the problem right now with Snow White, is that Disney's Plan B, we already discussed this, they have both a Plan A and a B. Plan A, which is already, a work in action right now, is re-editing this film, cutting out some scenes, rearranging them, shortening the running time, giving it a better flow to the story, so to speak. Kind of just enhancing the way it's edited, the way it's cut, stuff like that, alright? This also will involve special effects, lighting, color correction, color grading, all that fancy stuff in post, right? So that's being performed right now, but their plan B is that they want to reshoot some very important scenes, either for better or worse, we're not quite sure just yet. But that's pretty much nearly impossible right now, like I said, because of WGA and SAG. If they even wanted to embrace that, they would have to delay that movie, most likely a good 3 months. That would lead them right into around July. So, but moving on to the next thing here is the fact that Mark Webb is somebody that really just bowed down to Disney, allowed them to just do what they wanted to do with this film, and called it a day. This is the type of director that just takes orders, and that's that. He could have easily left if he did not like the story. Let's just, embrace and, kind of think about that for a second. A lot of directors sometimes, when they don't like what the studios are doing, they usually leave, or they raise a concern, and they get into creative differences, and they end up getting fired, or let go, or they walk away. This has happened many times, by the way, with Star Wars movies, and, all the like. So, Mark Webb, I've said this many times, he is a full supporter of Disney and what they are doing, and we already went over the fact that Mark loves the idea of what the 7 dwarfs are in this film, or the magical creatures. That was also an idea on how he wanted to represent them in this movie. Different ethnicities, different genders, and different heights. And it just looks ridiculous. Let's be honest about that. It really does. So, I would like to hear what you guys have to say about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.